Welcome back to Ledger and Crime. Today, we're diving into a case that stands out to me from a financial crime perspective, because the money laundering network behind this scheme was so sophisticated it spanned 175 countries and fooled compliance teams at major banks worldwide. This is the story of OneCoin, and it is one of the most important cases in modern financial crime history. She called it the future of money. Regulators called it the biggest crypto scam in history. By the time the world figured out the truth, over 3 million people had lost their life savings. This is the story of OneCoin, and the woman who pulled off the largest cryptocurrency fraud the world has ever seen. To understand OneCoin, you first need to understand the world it was born into. The year was 2014. Bitcoin had just crashed from its first major peak. People were burned, skeptical, and desperate for the next big thing. Into that vacuum stepped one woman with a bold claim. She had built something better than Bitcoin. Her name was Ruja Ignatova. Born in Bulgaria in 1980, she moved to Germany as a child and earned a PhD in European private law from the University of Constance. She spoke 6 languages. She dressed impeccably, and she had an ability to command a room that very few people possess. On paper, she was the most credible person in the room. That was the point. When Ruja took the stage, she did not pitch a cryptocurrency. She pitched a movement. She told audiences that Bitcoin was for criminals and speculators, that OneCoin was built for real people, that it was backed by real assets, fully regulated, and destined to become the world's #1 currency. Crowds believed every word. OneCoin events were not small affairs. They were held in stadiums and arenas across Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Tens of thousands of people attended. There was music, lights, and spectacle. And at the center of it all stood Ruja, telling the world she was going to make them rich. Here is how the scheme actually worked. OneCoin did not sell coins directly. Instead, it sold educational packages with names like Starter, Trader, and Tycoon. These packages ranged from a few hundred to over $100,000. Each package came with tokens that could supposedly be converted into OneCoin. But here is the critical detail investigators would later uncover. OneCoin had no real blockchain. A blockchain is the foundation of every legitimate cryptocurrency, a public, decentralized ledger recording every transaction. OneCoin's blockchain was a private database they controlled entirely. They could create coins, delete coins, and change the price whenever they wanted. The real money was not in the packages. It was in recruitment. OneCoin's compensation structure rewarded members for bringing in new investors. The more people you recruited, the more you earned. This is the classic structure of a pyramid scheme, and it is exactly what regulators around the world would eventually call it. What made OneCoin different from most pyramid schemes was its sheer global scale. By 2016, OneCoin claimed over 3 million members worldwide. It operated across Southeast Asia, East Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. It specifically targeted communities with limited access to banking, people who were told this was their one chance at financial freedom. The warning signs were there from the beginning. In 2015, regulators in Finland, Hungary, and Bulgaria all issued warnings about OneCoin. Crypto experts publicly stated there was no evidence of a real blockchain. But for every warning, OneCoin had an answer. They called critics jealous. They called regulators corrupt. And their members kept recruiting. By 2017, the walls were closing in fast. China banned OneCoin outright. India followed. Germany launched a criminal investigation. The U.S. Department of Justice opened a federal case. The people who built OneCoin knew the end was coming. And the woman at the center of it all had already started making plans to disappear. On October 25, 2017, Ruja Ignatova boarded a Ryanair flight from Sofia, Bulgaria, to Athens, Greece. She was never seen again. No arrest, no trial, no public statement. The crypto queen simply vanished. It is believed she had advance warning of a U.S. federal indictment and fled before authorities could act. The aftermath was devastating. Her brother, Konstantin Ignatov, took over operations and was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport in 2019. He pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering. OneCoin's lawyer, Mark Scott, was convicted of laundering over $400 million through a network of fake investment funds. The money laundering operation behind OneCoin was as sophisticated as the fraud itself. Over $4 billion in proceeds were moved through shell companies registered in the British Virgin Islands, Belize, and Hong Kong. The money passed through law firms, real estate investments, and offshore bank accounts across at least 175 countries. This is textbook layering. The second stage of money laundering. The first stage is placement, getting dirty money into the financial system. The second stage is layering, moving it through so many transactions it becomes nearly impossible to trace. OneCoin mastered both. Compliance teams at major banks processed millions in suspicious transactions without raising a single flag. Today, Ruja Ignatova remains one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. In 2022, she was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list, one of only a handful of women ever to earn that distinction. There is a $100,000 reward for information leading to her capture. She is believed to be living under a false identity, possibly protected by organized crime. The victims of OneCoin are still fighting for justice. Support groups exist in dozens of countries. Some investors lost their entire life savings, retirement funds, home equity, money borrowed from family. Regions like Uganda and Zambia, entire communities were financially devastated. The total loss is estimated at over $4 billion, making it the largest crypto fraud in history. Over 3 million victims. Over $4 billion stolen. One woman still on the run. OneCoin is a masterclass in how financial crime operates in the shadows and why understanding it matters. Subscribe to Ledger and Crime for new cases every week, because the criminals never stop, and neither do we.